Councillor Houston, we are live. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Agata. Excellent. Welcome, everybody, to this afternoon's Audit and Finance Committee meeting for the Edmonton Metro Transit Service Commission. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us today. We'll just start quickly with a couple of opening remarks. Just a notice of our live stream due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The meeting is being recorded and it will be live streamed on YouTube for the public. Due to the pandemic, the committee members are each in their respective homes or places of work for the duration of the recording process and of the meeting. And again, welcome to all of our guests and viewers. Thank you to those who have joined us today and to the members of the public watching our live stream or later the recording of this meeting. I just want to extend a special welcome to Councillor Tanya Hugh from the town of Devon, who is sitting in as an observer today as Mayor Craddock, who is a member of the Audit and Finance Committee, was unable to make the meeting. So welcome. With that, we'll move on to our land acknowledgement. And on behalf of the Audit and Finance Committee, we would like to acknowledge the traditional land in which we are virtually gathered today is Treaty 6 territory. We would like to thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked the territory for centuries, such as the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Nakota Sioux, and Blackfoot peoples. We also acknowledge that this is the Métis homeland and the home of the largest concentration of Inuit south of the 60th parallel. It is a welcoming place for all peoples who come from all around the world to share the Edmonton metropolitan region as a home. With that, we have an agenda on the screen for us here today. I'll look to administration to see if there are any amendments to the agenda.
No, Mr. Chair, there are not.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I will look to members of the committee for any questions or comments on the agenda. Seeing none, I'll look for a mover to move the adoption of the agenda as presented.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Houston. That is moved, and I will call to question all those in favor using the raise hand function on Zoom. There we go. That has the 3 voting members, so that is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on into our agenda, we are on to item 3, the update on EMTSC financials, and I will turn that over to Mr. Jankowski and Ms. Laurie Shea Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief, as has now become the custom for us to do when we meet as a committee. We are presenting the comparison of actuals to budget. And while we had signaled during the budget approval discussions back in December that we were going to be significantly underspent, and we had put forward an end of year projection for the end of December back at the beginning of December. What we have now done is with Laurie's help and with the help of Deborah from our consultant service provider, we have finalized all of the actuals for 2021, and Laurie will speak to the end of year comparison of actuals to budget.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Paul. The update that we provided to the November committee meeting, we stated that we were going to be underspent by 1.291 million. We've increased that now to 1.340 million. So we actually have more savings than we anticipated having this year. There were a couple of larger items that contributed to this. So a couple of the adjustments we did when we just did our preliminary year-end forecast. We're currently in the middle of our year-end. So this is draft, but we don't anticipate that there will be any material changes to this. So one of the biggest things that we changed in our November estimate, we did include an assumption that we would onboard 2 new staff members the middle of December. That hasn't occurred. They will actually be onboarding now next week and then the week after, so in January. So that represents roughly around $17,000 of actual savings to the commission. That's not going to move into 2022. That's actual savings. The other item, we did have an estimate included in November. We're getting some some recruiting help for one of our positions, and we had anticipated that we would have the recruiter in place in December and have a contract with them. That didn't occur before the Christmas break, so that will move into 2022 and be a 2022 expense. So that's not an overall savings to the commission, but it is certainly that's something that's going to move to 2022. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that overview. And I will just turn to the committee members to see if we have any questions. Seeing none, I just want to again extend our appreciation for the work going into the year end at this point in time. It's always nice to see an adjustment where you see some savings. So every dollar that we can see in savings is fantastic. Obviously, understanding that some of the savings from this year will roll over into next year for that continued recruitment. However, having those two positions that weren't on filled, giving us that actual savings will help us with the initial startup costs. So thank you very much for that. So we will have a decision item on that then. So I will look for a mover from the committee for the motion on the screen. I see Glenn waving his hand. If you want to come off mute and read that in.
Sure, I had little technical difficulties to start with, and I've got audio now, which is a good thing. I move the Audit and Finance Committee accept the material and discussion as presented during the update on EMTSC financials as information.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And with that, I will call the question. All those in favor using the raise hand function. And that is carried unanimously. Moving on then to item 4 in our agenda, the auditor introduction and audit plan. Mr. Jankowski, do we have the auditor on with us?
I believe I guess, is being led into the room as we speak. Maybe I'll just do a very brief introduction of the item, and then I'll turn it over to Lori, who has been the one that has been running the request for proposals and has ended up going through the evaluation and identified that Metrics Group would be the identified external auditor to come in and do the audit, meet the audit requirements. So as has been specified in the governance bylaw, this committee, the Finance and Audit Committee, is charged as with one of its core responsibilities being the oversight of the annual audit. And as part of that oversight, this committee is charged with approving the audit plan and recommending the audit plan to the board. What we have today is a short presentation by the selected auditor that has been approved by the board at its December meeting, was approved at the December meeting. Metrics Group LLP, we've got a couple of members that are here to join us. And with that, I will turn it over to Lori to introduce the members from Metrics and to start the presentation of the proposed audit plan for 2021 end of year audit. With that, Lori.
Thank you, Paul. Our engagement team consists of Jeff Alliston. He is our engagement partner, and Jeff has joined our meeting. I saw him and that he's joined, which is good. Danny On is the manager, and so we've been working with Danny now since December. So we've kicked off our audit, which is good, and it's very timely now to have Jeff join us to go through the audit scope of work and the work plan. Jeff is going to walk you through that, and so I will stop sharing my screen, and then Jeff will share his presentation. So welcome, Jeff.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. Everybody see that okay? I'm not sure how it comes across, but hopefully it's all right. Anyways, thanks for having me. My name is Jeff Alliston. I'm a partner with Metrics Group LLP. Some of you might know of our firm. Quite a few local government-related organizations throughout Central and Northern Alberta. I think currently we audit about 50 plus municipalities within Alberta. So we have Pullman, Saskatchewan, and some actually up in the Yukon. So again, it's a big area of service for our firm. So I'm here today to discuss the audit plan for the Edmonton Metropolitan Transit Services Commission. So this is just the table of contents. So let's start off with a bit of an executive summary. So really the purpose of this report is really just to introduce ourselves as the auditors, as yourselves as responsible for the governance for the Edmonton Metropolitan Transit Services Commission, provide an overview of the planned scope of the audit, where we'll identify areas of risk that we feel within the audit, how we plan to identify those risks or mitigate them in our audit, and then also to take sort of questions when sorry, is there a question?
Sorry, Jeff, the audio is very hard to hear. I'm not sure if there's a way that you can adjust your microphone to be a little clearer. It's very muddled on our end.
Try to sound better like this right now, or I just used this yesterday. No problem. That's it.
Jeff, I don't know if you can hear us. We can't hear anything.
Test. Can you hear me?
I'm not disconnecting my computer a bit from my docking station, so now I'm a bit all over the place. Just bear with me for a sec here.
Test, radio check.
Do I sound better on this one or?
No.
No? Oh, I've never had this problem before. So I am not sure. I do have a new laptop for a couple of weeks, but I haven't had any sound issues. I couldn't tell you. Well, I'm not quite sure what to do. So you guys can't hear me at all, or I'm still muffled, or?
It's a little bit better now. So I think maybe the closer you get to the microphone, the clearer it is. But we have lost your presentation. It's no longer on the screen.
Okay, I'll just try to.
Okay, it's back.
Okay, how's that? Is that viewable? Okay, or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, sorry about the audio. I'll try to talk as loud as I can. Basically, I talk quite loud, so I'll give that a go. So anyways, yeah, so I was talking about kind of the purpose of the report and the importance of it, and really to promote two-way communication between ourselves and yourselves responsible for governance. Services to be provided, so we'll be performing an audit of the Commission's financial statements. We'll also prepare the year-end financial statements for the Commission. will help prepare as well as review the financial information return that goes to municipal affairs before the May 1st deadline, and then as well as complete the compliance audit for the local authorities pension plan audit. Materiality is a big component of our audit, so we will be using a level of 3% of operating expenses, which I'll discuss later in the report as to what that means. When it comes to our audit approach, there's really two approaches. You can use a combined approach where we rely on internal controls as well as test them, or perform a straight substantive approach. So here we're going to do a substantive approach on our audit. So we'll be verifying transactions to source documents to ensure that they've been accurately recorded, as well as performing single confirmation, looking at data analysis of data separately in order to complete our audit. So we won't be taking any reliance on internal controls, just really due to the size of the entity. And right now we're thinking that there isn't a need to really to go into a control process. When the organization obviously grows, becomes much larger, the controls will become more of a factor when it comes to the audit. We discuss our audit fees here and what we get quoted in relation to our services to be provided for the year. On the next page, we go over responsibilities. So our responsibilities, as well as the responsibility of those charged with governance. And really our responsibility is to audit, perform an audit of the commission in accordance with Canadian generally accepted auditing standards, as well as to ensure that the financial statements fairly in all material respects the financial position, results of operations, cash flows of the commission in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. So those are the same standards that your municipalities report under. So the financial statements will look identical, just much smaller than what you're probably used to seeing from the municipal financial statements. Responsibility of management and those charged with governance for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards, and that those charged with governance, the board is responsible for overseeing the commission's financial statements. So this is just part of our audit report. When it comes to materiality, materiality is really determination from us as auditors using professional judgment to determine a level or variance where there potentially could be an error within the financial statements. So currently, based on interim balances, we use a 2% benchmark over expenses to determine materiality, which at this time would be about $63,800. So what we're saying is that the annual surplus or deficit for the organization were to increase or decrease by that amount, the user of the financial statement may have a view of the outcome for the year for the organization. So that could be the user being yourself as a board member, organization of providing lending to your organization. So those are the type of users, municipal affairs, people that have an interest in the financial performance of the commission. When it comes to the planned scope of the audit, so this is where we identify areas of focus, and the main area really being management override of controls. So management is in a area where they potentially financial results, make journal entries in order to budget results or to increase performance. So in order to mitigate that risk, as auditors, our firm uses data analytic tools to go through the GL to identify journal entries that we would determine to be, I guess, suspect in nature. So maybe they were recorded Saturday night or a certain amount or at certain times. That's where we use IT or technology to kind of identify potential areas of risk when it comes to annual journal entries in order to address those and to ensure that they're not fraudulent in nature. So when it comes to salaries, wages, and benefits or resourcing costs, risk from an audit standpoint is that potentially there's employees getting paid that don't exist within the organization. So we want to make sure that we are preventing that from happening. So we want to look, so we'll be performing substantive analytical procedures over salaries, wages, and benefits. So we'll be taking employees, looking at contracts, and making sure that the amount that's supposed to be paid is actually what got paid when it comes to your salaries and wages expense, to make sure that there is no misstatement there. Other expenditures, such as startup and recurring expenses, inherent risk there is that there are fraudulent expenses being reported, so expenses that are not within the commission, or there could be risk potentially that expenses are reported in the wrong period. So we will obtain an understanding of the process and controls in place there, as well as select a sample, whether significant or non-significant, and test those transactions within the year to make sure that your expenses are accurate. Cash or bank indebtedness at year end, so there is risk there that the balance is not recorded correctly or is active at year end. So you send confirmation to the financial institution to verify the balance at year end. We'll also perform procedures over your bank reconciliation to make sure that all transactions there are accurate. And then accounts payable and accrued liabilities. So there's risk here that transactions have been recorded in the wrong fiscal year. So we do work over transactions that occur into the 2022 fiscal year to make sure that they either should be recorded in 2021 or have been correctly recorded in 2020. As well as review minutes that occur subsequent to your end to see if there was any liabilities or anything that happened subsequent that might need to be reflected within the financial statements of 2021. So preliminarily, those are the areas of focus that we had on the organization. And now I plan to respond to those. Request from the board. So definitely want you to advise us of any additional areas of concerns that the board would have. This includes any instances of actual suspected or alleged fraud that you may be aware of or affecting the commission. After this meeting, we definitely want to set up a meeting with the board chair in the next couple of weeks. We do have some internal governance questionnaires that we want to go over when it comes to this audit. Understanding of the governance. Timing of the audit. So really, we've already started our planning in December into early January here. We're hoping to get started on the year-end work around January 24th is when we have that booked. We feel that we'll be able to meet the reporting requirements and have a draft statement in the meeting from March, and then be able to financial statements. Once we're done that, the reporting process or approval from the board, we'll perform submission to municipal affairs, which will result in the financial statements as well as the commission's financial information, and then perform a bid brief after. The engagement team, we spoke about earlier. So myself as the engagement partner for this organization. So I've been involved in this firm or in municipal auditing for 10 years, about 13 years now. So definitely I've seen a lot when it comes to governance. I also sit on the Emerging Issues Task Force with GFOA. So I'll work with some other municipalities, mainly within the Edmonton Metro. We seem to have good within that task force. We have good a bunch of people within the Edmonton area on that task force versus the southern part of the province. And then Danny he's the manager on the file, so he's responsible in assisting me with that. And he has over 5 years of experience and he's responsible for that review for the engagement. Appendix I, so required communication. So again, we'll talk about independence. So we do feel that we are independent of the commission. We do not hold a financial interest or have an economic dependence on the commission. We'll have an engagement letter, which will document the objective and scope of the audit that will get signed by the audit committee chair. Management representation at the end. So once we complete our audit, management's responsibility and representation, we get them to sign a report pretty much outlining that they provide us with all the information that was needed and that there wasn't anything, I guess, more or less kept from us. Duties. And then communication of results. So at the completion of the audit, we'll communicate to the board matters that are matters that are required to be communicated to the board based on standards, including possible fraud, possible legal acts, significant weaknesses in control, and certain related party transactions. So those areas that I talked about earlier, when we talked about areas of risk and focus, we'll go back to all those. we'll address what we have done to complete those, and if we have any significant findings within those areas that needs to be addressed to the board at that time. Any other matters that would have arisen from the audit, and then matters previously agreed upon, we want to communicate those back to see if there was any changes from over years. So again, being our first year, we won't have any of those. Appendix II, this just kind of outlines new and revised accounting standards. A lot of these don't come into effect until December 31, 2023, so still a few years away. But definitely asset retirement obligation is one that gets a lot of traction. I'm sure you've heard this from your other municipalities in relation to obligations in order to retire assets within the financial statements. So whether it's a building with asbestos, whether you have a landfill, a solid waste site, or any sort of environmental standard on an active site that needs to be completed or remediated, would fall within this category. So again, it is a few years away. Definitely when when the assets do come over, timeline is a couple of years from now, you definitely want to be looking at potential asset associated with those and making sure liabilities are recorded within the books for the December 2023. Other ones, financial instruments, there'll be some additional disclosure changes there that you see in your financial statements as well, just based on what I expect the entity to look like in a couple of years. Foreign currency, I don't think would affect you, or in financial statement presentation there as well when it comes to presentation of financial position. So again, there are changes, but they are a few years down the road, with the main one really focused on the beach asset retirement. Other ones in the future, revenue, as well as in the next page, public-private partnerships, and then purchase intangible assets, which are expected to be adopted December 31, 2024. So with that said, that is our audit plan, final report for the audit. And if anybody has any questions, I can definitely take those now.
Thank you, Jeff. Paul or Lori, did you guys have any additional comments that you wanted to add on to Jeff's presentation?
No, I think other than to reiterate Jeff's suggestion that we are preparing this, or we've engaged Metrics to prepare this audit for presentation back to this committee and ultimately to the board in March. Other than that, the presentation of the proposed plan is here for the comments of the committee, review and comments of the committee. And I don't have anything to add. Lori, I don't know if you've got anything. No.
Nope. Don't have anything to add either.
Excellent, thank you. So I know it was a little bit hard for members to hear, but I think we got most of it there. And so I will look to the members of the committee then to see if they have any questions or comments in regarding the audit plan. We'll start with Councillor Houston. None for you. Councillor Finstead, none for you. And Councillor Hugh, did you have any comments or questions as well? Excellent. Well, I have no questions or comments either. So thank you very much, Jeff, for the presentation today. We look forward to the work that yourself and Danny will do with both Paul, Lori, and the rest of the team in regards to the audit. And we look forward to seeing the audited financial statements coming back to this committee within a couple of weeks here.
Thank you. All right, enjoy the rest of your meeting then.
Thank you. With that, on item 4, then we do have a motion, and I will look to committee members for somebody that would like to move that. Councillor Houston, would you like to make the motion?
It'd be my pleasure, sir. I'd like to make a motion that the Audit and Finance Committee review the proposed audit scope and work plan and recommend to the board for approval.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on that motion? Excellent. Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor using the raise hand function. And we have that carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Item number 5 on our agenda is in-camera session. Just confirming with administration, do we have an in-camera item on the agenda today?
We do not, Mr. Chair. There are no in-camera items for discussion.
Excellent. So we do not need to proceed into camera. With that, then, that concludes our agenda, and I will just look before we close off the meeting to see if there are any other questions or comments from committee members or administration prior to the close of the meeting.
Just one question to Lori. I thought she was going to do a brief presentation or an update on the RFPs that went out and how that was handled. I'm not sure if I misunderstood that or not, but I thought so. Anyway, there was a full RFP process on the metrics for this group to get the audit, and went up to a competitive process. And that was just all I wanted to confirm. Don't need any further update other than the fact that there was a competitive process for this. Okay, that's all I have.
Just a note, I think we went through that either the last committee meeting or at the last board meeting where that was covered off, Mayor Houston or Councillor Houston.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Houston. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, then I'd just like to thank everybody for their participation today. And with that, we will call our meeting adjourned. We will see you again soon. Take care. Stay safe, everyone.
Yeah. So long.
Take care, everyone.